Since the dawn of the GAA in 1884, the telling of its stories have been just as important as the sports. Through the years, heroes and matches have been immortalised, inspiring generation after generation. But some of its most important stories have also gotten lost or turned into legend. And in this series, we will explore some of the GAA's most fascinating forgotten tales, separating rumour from reality and myth from the truth that is often more amazing than the fiction. I'm Michael Foley.
And I'm Ciaran O'Hara.
So join us for Over the Bar, exploring the histories of the GAA.
Hello and welcome to episode 5 of Over the Bar, the Gaelic Games History Podcast. You may be wondering about the odd-numbered episodes. So if you're on the free feed, they are odd-numbered. Our even-numbered episodes are available to our Corja Club members. A big thanks to all those who have already signed up for the Corja Club, but a huge thanks to all of you who have been listening to the free episodes too. Mick, we've nailed 5 of the 7 continents. We're still waiting for our first South American listen and Antarctic listen. But we're delighted with the response we've had to the first few episodes. Big shout out to brother Colm O'Connell, our first listener in Kenya, who very kindly got in touch with feedback. Not to start it like a local radio broadcast, but we've had great feedback.
We're very, no harm to no harm to the local radio feel at all. I mean, people have been really kind and the messages have been fantastic and people seem to be enjoying the shows. So, as you say, Ciaran, if you're enjoying the free-to-air episodes, as it were, join the Corja Club as well, and you'll get a few more bits and pieces. We have had correspondence.
Yeah, some great correspondence.
Yes. But there was one in particular I did want to give a shout-out to. It came in from Dan Cronin in Macroom in County Cork. Dan is an intrepid programme collector. It's the only word for it. His collection, there is no beginning and no end to it. We have literally everything you can possibly imagine is in that room where he keeps them. Some fantastic bits and pieces, but relevant to what we were doing last week. He shared with us after we got those episodes out. We were talking about American football in Croke Park last week. Dan has the programme from the first game in 1953.
I know.
Burtonwood Bullets and the Wethersfield Rockets, baby. He's got it. He sent us on some photographs. There's a team sheet. It's fantastic. He also sent us some pictures of the programs, the Wembley tournaments, which we talked about in episode 2 on how did Paddy Cullen save a penalty at Wembley. So some fantastic stuff there as well. So Dan, really, really appreciate you getting in touch. He also had a good question, Ciaran, because we are inviting questions from listeners.
Okay,
he
go
asked,
on.
Is there any chance we could do an whole episode on the programs?
I will definitely do that in due course. Yeah.
I think all we're short really is a question. If we can come up with a topic that can be put in the form of a question about programs, we'll absolutely do it. That's definitely going on the list. So Dan, thanks so much for the question. Thanks so much for the pictures. We're going to post the pictures up on our members' website so everybody can have a look at those. Anyone who listens to the episodes that we've been on before, you might get a little more insight into what these things look like proper. I think one of them is from one of the Mayo matches that was played at Griffin Park in Brentford. It was Cork.
Yeah, the one we mentioned in Brentford. Yeah, so that was 1990.
Magic. So thanks again to Dan. Thanks to everybody who's listening. And as Ciaran said, sign up to get more.
And I'd say Dan will be particularly interested as a good Macroom man in today's episode. So, Michael, the question for today's episode: why do Cork wear red?
Because it just looks so well on them. Why wouldn't they wear red?
That's not the answer, and you know it's not.
Well, I tell you, it's fantastic because this is why, again, I've said this already. We're only, 5 episodes in, and I said this at least the second time I've said this. This is the kind of question why this series exists. Because I would imagine everybody just would have assumed that Cork wear red since the dawn of time. Apart from that little period that was reminded to us about 9 years ago now, in 2016, when they turned out for a league match against Kilkenny wearing blue jerseys with a big yellow C on it. And people were, what's all that about now? And that was the jersey they would have been wearing in 1916, the centenary, 100 years later. So maybe people might think, well, those are the two jerseys, right? Maybe. Well, there was one year in particular where they had more jersey changes than, like, I don't know, Taylor Swift gig costume changes type thing. Just a carousel of them. So why do Cork wear red? Well, we will find out as we go along. The short answer before the long answer is the original ones got robbed, so they needed new ones.
Okay, we will get into all that. But so, when did they first wear red? When would the public have become conscious of Cork wearing red?
So I suppose the mass audience for Gaelic games would have become conscious of it the 1919 All-Ireland hurling final against Dublin, when they would have trotted out into Croke Park. People who had not seen them in the Munster Championship would have been expecting, again, the blue jerseys with the big yellow C that were, had kind of taken root among the Cork fans as well. Trotted out in these red jerseys and stood alongside the Dubs in the sky blue. And yeah, everyone was looking each other up and down.
The Dubs in the royal blue.
The royal blue. They're royal blue, quite correct. Pardon me. So yeah, that would have been it. That 1919 All-Ireland final. But the story of how the jersey and how that Cork team got to that All-Ireland final, it resonates to this very day, because as we speak now, Cork are going through the longest wait for an All-Ireland title they've ever had. And back then, they were waiting a long, long, long time as well. It was their longest wait to date in 1919.
Okay, let's get into it. So, if not red, you've mentioned the blue jersey with the big yellow C. How many jerseys have Cork had at this point?
Well, I tell you, like a lot of counties back in this time, it was all the colours of the rainbow. So, like, rather than go through them all, because, it's a long time ago, we don't know exactly how many they had, but just take the 7 or 8 years before 1919. So we go back to 1912, because that's an interesting starting point for various reasons. They went to a Pan-Celtic Congress in Belgium in 1912, which, as the name would suggest, was a fascinating gathering of Celts from across Europe, including a couple of hurling teams.
I hadn't realised the Belgians were Celtic.
I hadn't.
Revelations in this podcast already. And also fascinating Celts. Who knew? But they also had two very good hurling teams with them, Cork and Tip. So for that day, for that challenge kind of exhibition hurling game that they had as part of this Celtic affair, Cork wore green that day. Tip wore blue. So there's one jersey. You had the blue jersey with the gold C that came in around 1915. They might have worn it before that. So it was 1913 when counties were obliged to actually register their jerseys as a particular colour. Before that, since 1884 or whatever, county teams, such as they existed, usually went with the colours of the club champions, and the club champions of a particular county would supply the vast majority of the players, plus a couple of added extra players from around the county to make the county team. But from 1913, you had to pick your colours. Now, it's funny, we're so, wedded to our county colours now. It means so much to us, and it's such a badge of identity. Back then, it was really very slapdash, as we're about to find out how you actually ended up with your county colours. So we had Cork green 1912, in blue and gold with the C, as I say, around 1915. Apparently there was a saffron and blue Clare style jersey in 1916. And then in 1919, we get the red jersey, the dark blood maroon red jersey. Not the red that we know now, but a more of a Galway look. But even, getting that jersey was a story and a half, and why they kept it the season itself was a hell of a story as well. So, did they just debut it at the All-Ireland final then?
No, unfortunately, they lost the blue jerseys a long time before that. So we need to rewind. So if that All-Ireland final was obviously towards the end of the year, we need to rewind back up to the spring of 1919. Couple of major things had happened. We obviously had the War of Independence was beginning to kind of really get going in earnest. So in Cork, the first victim of the War of Independence was a guy called James Down. He was actually a former chairman of Cork County Board. And he was kicked to death by 4 soldiers in the city. So he was the first victim of the War of Independence in Cork. There was votes of condolences and so on given by Cork GA. And already Cork GA was being identified by authorities as a possible connect to the IRA and to what they would have seen as dissident movements, I suppose, at the time. So one of the things they did quite soon after James Downs' death was they performed a raid on the Cork County Board offices, which at the time were in Cook Street in Cork City. If you can find it, there's a plaque there, and there's the whole lot to tell you that the County Board offices were there at the time. They went up looking for any sort of connection they could possibly make between the GA and the IRA. They found nothing, but what they did find was the county jerseys in a sack in the corner. And it kind of gives you a bit of a sense of where the GA was at even at that stage and what it meant, that they knew that by taking the jerseys, number one, it was a nuisance thing. And secondly, they were going to, leave a bit of a mark on these guys. They were going to kind of say to them, look, you may think you're something, or you may think you have some sense of identity that you're fighting for or whatever, but we're just going to take your sense of identity by taking these jerseys. And keep in mind, it's not like now. Jerseys were very hard to come by. You couldn't go into a shop and just buy a jersey. There was no replica jerseys. There was nothing like that. If you had 15 jerseys or 20 jerseys, they were your jerseys. And all of a sudden...
You weren't just nipping down to Cummins Sports to get another set.
No, not at all. It was a major operation to try and find jerseys. So we're at the spring of 1919. The first round of the Munster Championship is May against Waterford, May the 18th to be exact. And they don't have any jerseys. So... it's a bit of a pickle, to say the least.
Love GEA history? Then you love going deeper with Over the Bar's Cordia Club membership. For just €5 a month, you'll get exclusive member-only episodes and series, early ad-free access to the main podcast, plus detailed show notes, a newsletter, and the chance to have your questions answered. Join Michael Foley and Ciaran O'Hara as they uncover the stories, the legends, and the questions that shaped our games. Don't just listen, be part of the club. Join now at overthebar.club.
So I'm veering to, what did the squaddies do with the jerseys? Like, did they become their regimental soccer kit? Did they fully appropriate Gaelic culture? But look, the Belgian-inspired blue jerseys with the gold C are gone.
Yes,
so what's the solution?
It's actually worth mentioning that. I don't think I mentioned that. So the blue and gold came from that Pan-Celtic Congress. So Cork were in those old green jerseys I mentioned. They saw the Belgian army. And some of the Belgian army, whatever the makeup of the uniform was blue and gold. So they thought this is business like. So they put the blue with the yellow C. And it really caught on, by the way. Because when the red jersey came in, first game, some of the crowd were talking to the Cork goalkeeper from behind the wire going, I see you got new jerseys.
As you do, yeah.
As you do. I see you got new jerseys, boys. Do you like them? This kind of stuff. And, we missed the old blue ones with the C and all this kind of stuff, So it had obviously kind of taken root. But, so, look, obviously, so we get down to, the hourglass dwindles down to May, and it's kind of like Cork don't have jerseys. So what do we do? Well, there was a guy who was on the team by the name of Connie Sheehan. Now, Connie Sheehan had played for Cork since about 1912. He had captained Cork at one stage. He played for Redmonds, which was a club that operated out of Barrack Street in the heart of the city. He also ran a bar on Barrack Street, and he had heard, there's a certain irony in this, he had heard as a barman that the GA team of the Father O'Leary Total Abstinence Club, which was just up the road,
so
was disbanding.
The one rival club that might be providing no customers.
Yeah, exactly. They were no use to him, but the jerseys might come in handy. So he let the Cork County Board know that, look, the Father O'Leary Club was going out of business. Father O'Leary Club, which, by the way, was in operation 300 metres down up the road from St. Finbarr's, the famous St. Finbarr's GA club. So they were all in the same parish. So anyway, Connie Sheehan said, look, they're there. Do you want to use them, or we could use them? So they said, yes, we will. So a man by the name of Sean McCarthy, who was the Cork County chairman at the time, he was only 27 years of age when he became Cork County chairman. He actually went on to become GA president in years afterwards. He went to Father O'Leary's and collected the jerseys. They were dark red, maroon. As Shawnee said to Tim Horgan, God rest him, the great Cork GA historian, he said about the jerseys and the whole crisis as well. He said, God never closes one door, but he opens another. So they went from this blue with the yellow C to this dark maroon jersey that was about to become really, really iconic. The only problem was you only had 15 of them. So Sean had to go down to the Munster Arcade, which was on Patrick Street. It was like the biggest department store in Cork City. And he bought 6 white pullover tops. And you can see in the All-Ireland final picture, there's subs are wearing these white pullover tops with red kind of hoops on them. A little bit like the Derry jerseys, little bit. So they were
like a red band in the middle, or like the Ger Cunningham special?
Not the Ger Cunningham. I kind of like the Ger Cunningham special is a bit like a kind of an evolution of the original. Yeah. And you know what? There might be something in that actually, but more of the Derry version was the starting point anyway. So the first day they wore these jerseys was against Waterford in Dungarvan, Munster Hurling Championship, first round. Bright day, huge crowd. Now, there was trouble at the time with the GA, between the GA and the railway companies. Railway companies weren't always inclined to put special trains on for these matches. So what you had in effect was a huge amount of like private cars, such as they existed, horse and traps, bicycles, just a mass movement of people. And I mean, we see what the Cork crowd is like now when they get going.
No fishing boats out of East Cork.
No. Well, you know what? There probably was. They probably did go around from one harbour to another. But we see what the Cork crowds are like now. They weren't far off that back then in relative terms. So they brought a huge crowd to Dungarvan. On top of that, it was a double header. So the Cork footballers were playing the Waterford footballers first and then the Cork hurlers. So the Waterford footballers beat the Cork footballers. And then
hold on. What were the Cork footballers wearing?
That's a great question. No, that is a great question. And, you know, true and all as I am to the duties of this podcast, I really tried to find that out. And I will put it out there to anybody who knows. What did the Cork footballers wear? Because the hurlers had their new jerseys, but the footballers did not, as far as I'm aware, didn't have anything. Now, what's potentially interesting, right? Cork County champions for 1919 were Cove. Cove colours were green and gold. So, I don't think I need to say any more here.
So the Cork footballers were wearing Kerry colours.
We don't know. I would not like to put that on any Cork football team. But I'm just saying, I'm not getting into a whole geopolitical issue here, but it's possible. It's possible. Now, in fairness, roll on a bunch of years, the day that the Kerry team wore Cork jerseys when they won an All-Ireland. So, like, what goes around comes around. That's all I'll say.
Yes, Kerry did win an All-Ireland wearing Cork jerseys, and that story is episode 6, which you can get on the Corja Club feed today. So let's not get any more into that. Let's not give away all the goodies. But let's get back to Dungarvan. So was this game in what we now know as Fraher Field, or
it would have been? It would have been, yeah, in what would have been Fraher Field, down by the water there. Ports differ on the result. But fair to say that Waterford were completely trounced. It was either, I found 2 different scores, 10 goals and a point to 3 goals, or 9 goals and 4 points to 4 goals. So, you know, it's a bit tomato, really. Cork hammered them, and suddenly there's a bit of interest in this Cork team. So it's 16 years as well, by the way, since Cork have won an All-Ireland. Longest spell they ever went without an All-Ireland hurling title up to the present day and the current famine that they're going through at the minute. But the day that the jerseys really get noticed is the next day out against Tipperary in the Munster hurling semi-final in the Cork Athletic Grounds. The Cork Examiner even sent a photographer down to take a picture of this exotic new
item. So this is one of those images that can now be doctored with the fake colour.
Yeah, it can. It surely can. I mean, you look at the picture in the newspaper. They took the Tipperary team as well. I'd say no, just kind of one of those ones where they really focus on the Cork team. Careful, 2 hands on the photo, on the camera, proper job. With the Tipperary team, which was more like, yeah, whatever, 1 hand looking another way. Yeah, thanks, lads. Look, take your photograph, go away. But if you look at them in the paper, so like they're both black and white. They both more or less look the same. The Cork jersey is a slight shade darker black. All right, so you can see the kind of maroon aspect, but. That game was actually very significant for a few reasons, but mainly because it was the first day that the Munster Council raised the price of entry. So that did not go down well with either the locals or the visiting supporters from Tipperary, who did not take this well, broke down some flimsy fencing, and about, I don't know, hundreds of people got in for free. So basically there was a riot, and like hundreds of people got in. It was really, really hard to manage the crowd then on the sideline during the game.
Copa America in Miami.
Yes. Craziness, right? There had also been talk before that, because it was in Cork, Tip had objected actually to going to Cork. They felt it should have been in a neutral venue. Cork said, listen, we travelled last year to Tip and Limerick for games. Give us a game at home. Like, this stuff goes around. This stuff happens now. It's not new. Only that teams generally don't threaten not to travel. But there was a worry that Tip would send a scratch team. They ended up sending a decent team. They lost by a point. Tipperary lost by a point. It was one of those games that established the Cork-Tip rivalry at the time. Really, really good game. So now Cork are into a Munster final against Limerick, who are the defending All-Ireland champions. And again, just to give you an idea of the interest in this, it was in the Markets Field in Limerick, which of course went on to be a soccer venue, really. I suppose I would have known it more as a soccer venue, really, than a J venue. But anyway, but to give you an idea of how big this stuff was, so over 20,000 people turned up to that Munster final, compared to 6,000 who turned up for the All-Ireland football semi-final between Kerry and Galway up in Dublin on the same day. So notwithstanding the geographical issues about travelling at the time, and that, it still shows you how big these things were. Like, the game was timed for 4:00. The venue was packed ages before that. Same as Cork Athletic Grounds. Touchline seats filled to overflowing. One spectator remarked, where are they actually going to play the match? Like, because everybody was spilling onto the field. It eventually got going 20 minutes late, the game. And another really good match. 2 players sent off. Cork win 3-5 to 1-6. They are now proper All-Ireland contenders. In an echo of things to come, rather than just tearing up in shared cars and things like that, Cork travelled up the night before and stayed in Limerick. So on the train from Cork, they would have gone through Buttevant. That station isn't there anymore, but they would have stopped there on the way up. And someone, I'm not sure it wasn't a member of the Cork party, but certainly someone, maybe someone's supporters, they had a Sinn Féin flag, stuck it out the window, and it was billowing away on the breeze as the train went along. When they got to Buttevant station, there was a soldier on the platform, sergeant, I think, and he went to try and grab the flag and pull it away. You know?
Red rag and bull, yeah.
Red rag, red jersey, maroon jersey and bull. And so a few lads got off the train. Again, I can't be sure it was Cork players or not, but I would imagine there was Cork supporters in it. There was nearly a fight on the platform over this flag before another soldier stepped in and kind of made peace, and they continued on their way to Limerick. But that was the vibe.
Love the free episodes of Over the Bar? Then take your passion further with the Corja Club membership. For €5 a month, you'll unlock bonus series and member-only shows. Hear the podcast first and ad-free, and get behind-the-scenes access through detailed notes, a newsletter, and Q&As. It's the ultimate GAA history experience, curated by Michael Foley and Ciaran O'Hara just for you. Upgrade your listening, support the show. Join today at overthebar.club.
All-Ireland semi-final then gets Galway, rough game. Notable for the fact that a spectator got onto the field. Again, it was in the Markets Field in Limerick. Got onto the field and attacked the referee. And I have to say, the match report included one of my favourite lines that I think I've ever seen in a match report, actually. It's so good. So, obviously, the reporter has to deal with this issue. So he says there was someone came on and attacked the referee. The latter dealt very effectively with the intruder.
Okay.
What could that be? What did the referee do?
There could be so many explanations for that. I'm just confused at the thought of, have we got 2 teams playing against each other in maroon here?
I know. Well, again, we go back to this whole thing that county jerseys and county colours hadn't really become established yet. So I'll be honest, I don't know what colours Galway were playing, but I'm not sure that maroon had been adopted by 1919. But howsoever, certainly in the years to come, when Cork had to register this jersey, they were told you have to make it a bit redder than the maroon of Galway, for differentiation purposes. The jersey plays a role as well in the lead up to the All-Ireland final. By the way, what's interesting as well is there's no reporting of this. Like, if you read the newspapers from the time, particularly the Cork Examiner at the time, there's no mention that the jerseys had been stolen. There's no mention of a new set of jerseys. apart from that photograph in the paper. There's none of this has been reported. The Cork County Board are not saying that Crown forces came into our offices and took our jerseys and all this kind of stuff. Nothing like that at all, which is kind of in keeping a little bit with the GA at the time, who would have had the opinion that whatever's going on in the outside world, we are driving on with our program of games. It was a form of independence in itself that we're just pushing on. But it does play a role in the week before the All-Ireland, the new jerseys, because, and imagine if this happened to this is the stuff you come across from this time, and you just imagine this happening now. The Cork County hurling final was played the Sunday before the All-Ireland final. St. Finbarrs were one of the teams in the final, and they won it.
No split season here, folks.
No, just a split week. The split week. Now, why split seasons? So the Bars won. So there was a county board meeting in the run into the All-Ireland final. So the Bars asked the question.
They had to organise the tickets for the banquet and all the rest of it.
There was. They had to sort out Marty Morrissey coming to the hotel. Are we staying in Cork? Are we staying in Dublin? The price of the hotels? Are we coming back down to the Imperial? What are we doing? All that kind of stuff. So the Bars had to ask the question. I can understand totally why they had to ask this question. Because they are now the county champions. Carricktool had been the county champions coming into the year, and now the Bars are the champions. So they have to ask, do we now get the honour of the captaincy? And the Cork County Board have a very delicate balancing act here, because that would have been, I know up to very recently, was one of the honours of being county champions. And of course, it's an All-Ireland final. So what they said was, look, the literal quote was, it's best not to change horses while crossing a stream. A lovely piece of diplomacy. Essentially, let's just leave it as it is. But I suppose the softener from the county board side of things to the Bars was, look, the new jerseys come from your parish. Remember that the Father O'Leary club was only 300 metres down the way from the Bars. So the jersey was like the consolation prize. You will be considered All-Ireland champions if Cork win on Sunday. That was what they were told, and they were happy with that.
Peace prevails.
So like, the All-Ireland final is against Dublin. Again, huge crowd, 30,000. Keep in mind, this is a year before Bloody Sunday. So like Croke Park is a fairly, it's not a great ground. I wouldn't go as far as to say it's dilapidated, but it's not great. But 25,000 people turn up for it. Starts 12 or 15 minutes late. And Cork are absolutely magnificent. They give a performance for the ages to bridge the gap and win the All-Ireland. And Connie Sheehan, the man who sourced the jerseys in the first place, played in defence that day, and he was absolutely outstanding. Absolutely outstanding. One of the Cork supporters, as the game was unfolding, Cork won 6-4 to 2-4. So it was a fairly comprehensive win. He said it was worth waiting for, says the Corkman in the crowd, watching the Dubs being annihilated by Cork. It's worth waiting for that All-Ireland bye.
Love GEA history? Then you love going deeper with Over the Bar's Cordia Club membership. For just €5 a month, you'll get exclusive member-only episodes and series, early ad-free access to the main podcast, plus detailed show notes, a newsletter, and the chance to have your questions answered. Join Michael Foley and Ciaran O'Hara as they uncover the stories, the legends, and the questions that shaped our games. Don't just listen, be part of the club. Join now at overthebar.club.
So many questions.
Keep them short.
Take me back to Belgium and explain to me the role of JJ Walsh at the time.
So JJ Walsh, at this stage in 1919, he's actually the president of the Cork County Board. He's gone up and beyond chairman and all that kind of stuff. He had held high office already in the Cork County Board, and around that time in 1912, he would have been very politically involved. Member of the IRA afterwards, very, very active in the Republican movement. He was the one who was taken with the blue and the yellow Belgian army uniforms and evolved this to the blue and the yellow sea. Cork, to give him something, the RIC would have been onto something in the sense that Cork GA, very early on in the thing, gave money to Tomás McCurtain, who would subsequently be killed while mayor of Cork during the War of Independence, to buy guns for the IRA. So JJ Walsh at this time as well was an MP. He was based mainly in Dublin, generally just trying to keep out of harm's way, I think. but he would have, turned up to Cork games. He would have been there, would have been a presence. Very, very strong, very, very strong figure, very, very major figure in those early years in Cork. And, if you go diving into the story of the War of Independence in Cork, JJ Walsh is all over it.
And might explain why there was a raid on the Cork offices in Cook Street.
Well, that's it. Like, they weren't a million. I mean, you could see what they were trying to do, but I mean, it was one of those petty things that, occupying forces sometimes do like this. We're going to take your jerseys. We're going to make life really awkward for you by doing this. But look at, as Sean McCarthy said, opportunity, God doesn't close one door without opening another.
When did they decide to stick with red and why?
Well, that winter. I mean, why wouldn't they? They had bridged the historic gap in a very swashbuckling and kind of exciting way. The jerseys kind of clicked. They had them as well, by the way. They didn't have to go looking for new ones.
Just need to get a set for the footballers and they're flying.
Maybe. Maybe we'll play that one by ear. So they had them. Why not stick with them? It was unanimously decided. The management at the time and the players all agreed we should keep these jerseys and we should push on with them. And indeed, they became iconic. Now, again, it's interesting because the blue and the yellow had kind of rooted itself in with the Cork public, as we can see from the bits of stuff that the crowd were shouting in at the goalie during the Tipperary game and the Waterford games. But yeah, the red jerseys. It was probably 1931, I would say, when you had this famous trilogy against Kilkenny in the All Ireland finals, when the Cork red really sort of took root in Cork consciousness, and then maybe the rest of the country, and then through the 50s with Ring and the Blood and Bandage, and this sense of the warrior armor. It was almost like putting on a suit of armor when you're going playing for Cork, putting on the red and white. And also you have that connection with the War of Independence, the fact that it came out of the War of Independence, the red and white, the spilling of blood, etc. Again, you get this sometimes around that era where there's a kind of a stretch to connect the GAA with the War of Independence, and some of it there's some obvious links, we know, but then there are some that are quite tenuous, and joining the jersey to the national struggle is a reasonable example of something like that. Now, to be fair, the RSC did rob their jersey, so there is an element of connection there, obviously. But in the way that it becomes mythologized, that's another step on again. So, in time through the 50s, all the way up through when people start bringing hats and flags and the red and white becomes, that big splash that you see on the terraces. And, all of a sudden it just becomes part and parcel of GA life. And I mean, look, I think for every county, your colours are special to you. People from Leitrim, people from Antrim, people from Mayo, people from all over Ireland will have the same affection for their county colours as Cork do. But I think in the story, I suppose, of GA at the national level and at the All Ireland final level, that red jersey really, really did become iconic over the decades in Croke Park and on the biggest days. So, but look, where did it come out of? Came out of a really panicked emergency and a pioneer abstinence society disbanding their hurling team.
So necessity being the mother of all invention. And I've no doubt we will be coming back to more county colours in future. For now, I leave you with the thought that every Cork secretary from that day to this must be happy that they don't have to write fixtures each week for the Father O'Leary Total Abstinence GAA Club versus another. Hope you enjoyed that one. Again, thank you all for listening. Wherever you are listening, please do like, share, subscribe on your podcast player feeds. And if you're really into your history, please do come and join us at the Corja Club, because among other things, you will get this week the episode on the time that Kerry won in All Ireland wearing Cork jerseys.
Oh yeah, we love that one. Oh, that's going up on the wall for me, I can tell you.
Where we have a fantastic guest in Joe Marahertig for that one as well. So I guess that's it from us for this week. Do join us again on Over the Bar, the Gaelic Games History Podcast.